Congratulations to the Netherlands. They are through to the last round of 16. An easy performance tonight, an easy victory. Austria offered very little from an attacking point of view. In fact, they offered very little defensively as well. It was a shambolic performance from the Austrians. No real game plan, no patterns, no movement. They had three at the back, but there's so much room in behind. The high line probably should have been exposed a little bit more by Holland and the Netherlands, and it really was, but they didn't. They didn't, and they got that goal early on from a penalty. Memphis puts it away, no problem whatsoever. Could have scored 2 or 3 more goals in the first half. In the second, it was like men versus boys. It was legitimately like men versus boys out there. Easy victory for the Netherlands. They're through to the next round. How many questions have been answered about the Dutch? I'm not too sure. Is anybody making them favourites? Is anybody talking about them in the same way as they are Italy or Belgium? Probably not. But they didn't need to play well tonight. They didn't need to be scintillating. They didn't need to be excellent because Austria were so bad. I heard the commentator say during the game that the Austrian players were complaining that before their first match, they had no idea of the system they were going to be playing up until like half an hour before kickoff. Talk about preparing yourself for a major tournament. It's unbelievable. But Memphis gets that goal. I think he looked very, very good tonight. Gini Wijnaldum equally very, very, very good. He looks like a completely different player. I thought he was very good for Liverpool, by the way. Very, very good. Just looked a different player in that shirt. Dumfries, another goal for him. I tweeted just before going live, we're very likely to see him linked to a Premier League club or two. In the next day or so, you'll start seeing them links. Just like I was calling him Locatelli last night. That's because Lacazette was in my head. I meant Locatelli. Suddenly he's linked to all these Premier League clubs after his name just was never really mentioned. And that's what I love about international tournaments. They always create these players that suddenly everybody's been monitoring and looking at for months and months and months on end. Artem here of a super chat says, with Barcelona underachieving in the last 2 years, I think a lot of people forgot just how good De Jong is, and Memphis needs to be a little more clinical. Yeah, listen, do you know what's interesting? If the team isn't right, if the management isn't right, look at players. If none of you had ever seen Marcel Sabitzer play football before, none of you would rave about him. If we didn't know who Alaba was, you would say he's average tonight. The right system, the right manager, and then quality around you. When one of those 3 things doesn't exist, you have a problem. In some cases, when you don't have all 3 of those things for a period of time, it can be even worse. And listen, De Jong's, of course, got quality players around him, but haven't really purchased particularly well in recent years, Barcelona. They've got some world-class players, but a lot of average players for the level and standard they play at. So, of course, it takes away from a young Frankie De Jong. And as and when they build the quality up around him, you'll see an improved player. You think about all the best central midfielders, centre-backs, strikers ever. Just look who they're playing with when they're in their pomp. Quality surrounding them. Generally, when they're achieving the most they've ever achieved, they've got a great manager as well. Those 2 things are nearly always there. So quality of player around you, quality of system, all these things are very, very important indeed. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. Frankie De Jong, a lot of you say absolutely right. He was amazing. He was amazing tonight. The midfield for the Dutch, I think, has been very underrated going into this tournament. I think it's been very, very underrated going into this tournament. And I think is a lot better than people give it credit for. And I think, as you say, because maybe some of their players, like the De Jongs of this world, have been at Barca that haven't done so well. Gini, if Gini was going into this tournament after Liverpool's Champions League winning campaign or their league winning campaign, people would have been more positive about him. But poor season for him and for Liverpool, and suddenly he's kind of written off. De Roon, I think, complements things very, very well in there. And then they have like Van Aanholt and Dumfries, which again, they're fullbacks, but they're playing a 3-4-1-2 formation, really, which is essentially a 3-4-3. We know all these variations are pretty much the same thing in the cold, hard light of day. They're pretty much the same thing. It's just small different nuances and pockets that people pick up. But the Dutch always play pretty football. It is looking good. Frank de Boer so far 2-2. And interestingly, if we start looking at the league tables right now in terms of the group stages, I was sort of thinking about this earlier. We've got the Netherlands that have now qualified, 2 wins from 2. We've got the Belgians, who were favourites to win their group, 2 wins from 2. The Italians, 2 wins from 2. It's kind of looking like that at the minute. Like the favourites so far have done very, very well in this tournament. No doubt about it. Tomorrow, will England make it 2 from 2? Let's have a look. Spain, though, can't. So Spain have let the side down there a little bit. This is the interesting one. The favourites, France, are they going to make it 2-2? Who quite knows? But we'll focus on this group here. Still open for Austria. They can still get themselves through. And that's also one of the reasons why I think they were negative tonight. There is an advantage for the tournament for having this sort of, I don't know what you'd call it. Like, I nearly said double jeopardy. That isn't double jeopardy. It works the other way around. It's almost this sort of foul safe, this safety blanket. Safety net is the right word. Safety. What's a safety blanket? I don't even know. This kind of net around these teams so you can finish third and still qualify. What you saw tonight from Austria is a team that realized we beat North Macedonia. As long as we don't lose too badly tonight, and remember, they're on the same goal difference now as the Ukraine, they're putting all their eggs into the basket of beating Ukraine. So it kind of made tonight's game a little less entertaining because they didn't need to go for it. If this was of old, there may have been a lot more urgency on them to have attacked. They still might have sat back a little bit because it would have been between them and Ukraine as an example. But Austria are not out of it. Are they better than the Ukraine? I don't know. Actually. I'll be intrigued to see if they leave that amount of space in behind, but open up more against the Ukraine. Yarmolenko and co could take them apart because they look very, very good today against North Macedonia, who Austria didn't manage to break down, in my memory, with as much vigor and as much consistency as the Ukraine. So it will be interesting. Let's take a look at some of your comments here. Man like Franklin says, Genie didn't have a bad season. He wasn't selected much because he was writing down his contracts. Either way, the point still remains. People are not raving about him because he didn't have a barnstorming season, is what I meant. Official Yves Basuma says, Terry, if Barca don't go for Depay, should Arsenal? Memphis is about to join them. It's all but done. Would Memphis go to Arsenal? I don't wish to laugh, but the answer is absolutely not. He won't be going anywhere near it. He won't be going anywhere near it at all. We will be catching up tomorrow morning on the Patson Daka update. He will be a Leicester City player. That is a done deal. That is over the line. Arsenal, Liverpool. I know kind of Fabrizio pointed out that they made, I don't know what quite Fabrizio was alluding to. I don't quite know what he was alluding to in his tweet about Liverpool, whether they weren't interested or they never made an official bid. I think it's more they didn't make an official bid. And you know what we've been telling you for weeks on here on the terrace? Official bids very rarely go in unless they know they're going to be accepted or they know they're going to get the player. And, you know, maybe Liverpool are looking elsewhere as well. It's an interesting one. But Patson Daka to Leicester. You've got, you know, Villa doing some bits at the moment as well, looking at certain players. They're also after, Leicester are also looking to sign or have signed. I need to double check that it's gone through yet or not. Is it Edouard from Rangers? So they're looking to really bolster that attack. And it's sensible because Jamie Vardy is coming to the end of his career as well. So it's very, very important that they start to look beyond him now also. Pedro here, Chelsea fan, says, I love how the Netherlands beat Austria and people are calling them favourites. But when England beat Croatia, they were overrated. England agenda is... So we know the England agenda is real. I saw a tweet from someone yesterday. I'm not going to mention their name. I'm not looking for an issue. They were complaining that... And I've seen this from lots of people, by the way. And I said before the tournament started that this would happen. They were complaining that during a number of the broadcasts... ITV and the BBC keep talking about England or England's games or what's going on in the England camp. They also touch a lot on Wales and Scotland as well. But it's like, well, of course they're going to. Imagine this. Imagine a English broadcasting station not marketing and trying to what I'm looking at, taper its audience to get its audience ready for its biggest games. And its biggest games are the games where if you think about it as Great Britain, not just England, over 92% of the viewers, if you look at the demographic of the whole country, if they're watching it, are England fans. So it's like, of course they're going to focus on that because it's of interest. I bet if you watch the French version and the German version, they do exactly the same thing, but for their nation. It's just a normal thing. So there definitely is an agenda against England from some people, but don't be annoyed about it. Embrace it, laugh at it. It's funny, really. You know, from my point of view, it's whatever happens, the barometer gets changed. You know what? See how Italy are being rated right now and Belgium. If England were to beat them, watch them change that narrative. Italy fooled us. That's what you'll get. And it's cool. Just embrace it. Don't get triggered by it. Not enough people talk about the England agenda, Terry. Yeah, I just don't think it needs a great deal of attention, if I'm being honest. I mentioned it because, of course, a comment from one of our wonderful viewers brought it up, but it just is what it is. I find it hilarious that people get annoyed that an English broadcasting station during a tournament that features England, where their biggest money earner will be England games, get people geared up for the England game. Think about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, imagine you drink in an Irish bar. So, why do they talk about St. Patrick's Day? Why do they build everybody up for St. Patrick's Day? Biggest of the year. Why do they talk about Christmas? Massive time of the year. Why do they get everybody in? Why do they keep talking about New Year's Eve when it's New Year's Eve when it's relevant? Because it's one of the biggest days of the year. Do you know what I mean? It just is what it is. It's a commerciality element more than anything else, but it is what it is. I love how people get triggered by it. Pedro says, I bet in France they are saying Kante Ballon d'Or. In Spain, Pedro best young player. Of course they are. Yeah. Of course they are. Because you got to understand, you have to talk to your audience. You have to talk to your predominant audience the majority of the time. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if I do a show and my audience are not interested, say I start, I don't know, talking about culture, entertainment, and my audience wants to know about the latest Netflix box sets. They want to speak about drill and drum and bass and grime music. No, I don't know much about those. I'm just naming them. And when it comes to movies, they want to speak about sci-fi. That's the demographic I've got. Why am I going to do a show talking about Beethoven and classical music? No one's going to want to watch it. So when you have an audience who wants to hear about the young up-and-coming English players or the young up-and-coming French or the young up-and-coming Spanish, why are you going to talk about a young player that's coming through from South Korea who isn't playing for a club in England that nearly nobody watching cares about? Imagine. But yeah, there we go. Roadman Terry. Nah, bruv. That wasn't a bit of me, to be fair. A lot of people that come from like the East End and South East all trying to pretend like they were roadmen. They weren't. I got a friend who talks about it a lot like he was. It's like, bruv, I know you weren't. When we used to come out and you were 15, you were wearing chinos, bruv. Man was in chinos. And he tries to act like he was a gangster. He wasn't. Terry, England are overrated. It's a fact. Yeah, listen, they might be, and that's fair enough. But you never. How do I put this in the right way? England again are the only other nation I've ever seen. Maybe it's because you're in it; it feels different. But if you go around the Spanish schools, the Belgium schools, and offices and everything else, who's going to win? Everyone's like, oh, come on, Belgium, because they want their country to. It's just national pride. It's fine. You're allowed to be proud. It's not a problem. I'm conflicted on Ben White. I'd be happy for a cheap if it was for cheaper, but the price is doing my head in. This must mean we have additional funds to spend. My brother, why have you not been watching my shows? Why have you not been watching the Done Deal show? We go through all of this stuff. You got to watch it throughout. Listen. I mean that with respect. Go check out Tuesday's episode. Go onto the homepage. Go down to the playlist. Pick out the one from 2 days ago. Listen, it's all timestamped, so you can listen to it easily. Listen to the Arsenal section. It comes up early. Dean Jones goes through every single element of that. Let's have a little look at comments here. Ashley Young going back to Villa. Yeah, bless him. Fair play. Like going back, to where we didn't quite all start there. It was Watford for him, but fair play to him for going back there. Ashley Young. I like him. He's a good servant to Man United. He wasn't a superstar, but he was for £18 million. He was a good player, really. When you think about how much he actually cost in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, Chino, bruv. Can you imagine going out in Leytonstone or Stratford with the boys? We're all in our like baggy jeans, trainers. I remember at that time, I think I had a spliffy jacket. Have you ever used to wear spliffy? Maybe it was only like a local thing. I swear it was a real thing, Spliffy jacket. You guys know what that was? Mine was like a bomber jacket with it on the back. I'm trying to find a picture. You guys must have heard of Spliffy, right? Yeah. And then my guy had chinos and his shirt tucked in. Like, this is how mad it was where I grew up. Having your shirt tucked in could get you attacked. Like, people look at you like you're an absolute Zoom. But yes, I remember them days. I remember that. I remember them days. Marlon was at Arsenal. Sad. Another one that got away. There we go, Igal. There we go. England are the only country where you are not allowed to be patriotic. Unfortunately, you will be attacked for it. I think it depends on what element. For me, I find it crazy for the sporting side. But I hear you, bro. I hear you. Thatched House, my G. I used to live near Thatched House, bro. I can say it now because I used to live Selby Road. Selby Road, bro. That's where I used to live. Yeah. That was my area, brother. That was my area. Let's see a few more of these comments here. You do. Well, if you do, then you would know that you've got more funds than you think are available. But there we go. Listen, only a short stream from us tonight at a really, really busy day. Back tomorrow with more content for you. Hopefully a nice surprise in the afternoon with guests that we've got coming on. I'm not too sure. I'm going to send an agenda to them anyway. They are a very, very, very busy journalist. If they're not on then, they'll be on at another time, I'm sure. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for tuning in as you always do. But until next time, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon.